I was a professional fighter. I fought professionally then, and Bruce was very, very good, but he never fought in the ring.
Really?
No, he never fought in the ring.
Okay.
Big difference. Kicking the bag is one thing. Getting in the ring and having someone kicking back at you is a whole different story.
For decades, Chuck Norris cultivated an image of unshakable discipline, old-school respect, and honor. An action hero both on and off the screen who never broke character. He was a man who lived by a code, a fortress of principle that few dared to challenge. But at 85 years old, the fortress gates finally swung open and the silence shattered. He named the men he could never forgive, the ones who crossed lines so blatant that even he couldn't just let it slide. The revelation sent shockwaves through Hollywood, because if the man who built his legacy on control and respect openly despised you, it meant you had committed an unforgivable sin. Now, let's uncover the truth behind the legend's wrath. Number 1. Shia LaBeouf, the actor who had no respect. Nobody in their right mind would ever picture Chuck Norris crossing paths with Shia LaBeouf. Just think about the sheer polarity. The calm, disciplined martial arts legend who built his entire career on a foundation of respect, suddenly forced to stand side by side with Hollywood's most volatile and unpredictable firebrand. It sounds less like a casting decision and more like a recipe for absolute disaster. And as it turned out, that's exactly what it became. The scene was the late 2000s, a period where both of their careers were on very different trajectories, and they found themselves entangled in a commercial project. On the surface, the idea seemed thrilling, a fascinating clash of generations, a merging of two entirely different worlds of acting. But the moment filming began, the ideological gap between them wasn't just obvious, it was a chasm. Chuck arrived the way he always had for 50 years. Prepared, respectful, professional, and ready to execute the job with flawless efficiency. Shia, by contrast, showed up like he was the auteur, the star, and the only person whose creative vision mattered. Crew members who were there would later describe the dynamic with brutal honesty. Chuck embodied the calm of a still lake, while Shia was a hurricane making landfall. That storm manifested as long, improvised speeches that butchered the prepared script, demanding unnecessary retakes long after the director had called a perfect take, and treating the meticulously planned schedule as a mere suggestion. To Norris, it was the ultimate sign of a profound lack of discipline, the very cornerstone of everything he valued. But true to his form, Norris didn't engage in a public shouting match. He weaponized his silence. He kept their conversations strictly functional and minimal, exited the set the very second his contractual obligations were fulfilled, and let his icy demeanor deliver a verdict louder than any rant ever could. Then, years later in 2020, he posted a single devastating line on his Facebook page that echoed through the industry. Fame without discipline is chaos. He didn't need to name names. The target was crystal clear to everyone who had been on that set. In that one succinct phrase, the clash was permanently sealed into history. One man built a legacy on discipline, while the other was consumed by the chaos he created. They never shared a screen again, and Norris made it abundantly clear he never would. Number 2. Steven Seagal, the wannabe who crossed the line. Chuck Norris built a 50-year career on a foundation of quiet dignity, almost never publicly insulting a soul. But when it came to Steven Seagal, that restraint vanished, and the legendary roundhouse kick of truth came out swinging. He once dismissed his fellow martial artist with a blistering final verdict: a wannabe who will never be.
How good is Seagal? He's a wannabe that will never be.
In the world of Chuck Norris, those 6 words were a nuclear-level condemnation. But Seagal didn't earn this scorn by accident. He actively campaigned for it by committing the one sin Norris could never abide: disrespecting the legends who paved the way. When Seagal exploded onto the Hollywood scene in the late 80s, he arrived with an unprecedented, self-generated aura of mystique. He wasn't just another action star. He was sold as a genuine martial arts oracle, the first Westerner to ever run a dojo in Japan, a master of a secret, deadly style the silver screen had never witnessed. For a moment, the industry was intrigued, maybe even dazzled by the spectacle. But then Seagal opened his mouth, and the facade began to crack. In a staggering display of arrogance, he started publicly calling out the very gods of the genre, dismissively claiming that icons like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris were more about flashy performance and movie-making than they were about genuine, devastating combat. That was the moment for Norris that any potential for mutual respect instantly evaporated. Seagal's words weren't just trash talk, they were sacrilege. Bob Wall, a close friend of Bruce Lee and a longtime ally of Norris, decided enough was enough. He gathered a veritable who's who of combat legends, including the legendary Bill Superfoot Wallace and the devastating Benny the Jet Urquidez, and issued a direct public challenge to Seagal. Put up or shut up. Prove your claims in the ring. The silence from Seagal's camp was deafening. He never answered the call. And in the world of real fighters, that kind of silence doesn't make you look wise or above the fray. It brands you as a paper tiger, all mystique and no metal. In the end, Chuck didn't need to throw a single punch. He didn't need a bloody showdown or tabloid headlines. All he needed was one perfectly sharp, infinitely damning line that would echo for decades. A wannabe will never be. And with that, everyone in Hollywood and the martial arts world knew exactly where Chuck Norris stood. The chasm between them was permanent. Norris continued to ascend as a respected elder statesman, his dignity intact, while Seagal's reputation continued its slow-motion collapse, sinking under the weight of countless scandals and his own unearned hubris. One man was a legend, the other permanently exposed as a wannabe. Number 3. Jean-Claude Van Damme. From protege to bitter disappointment. In the early 1980s, before the neon glow of fame, Jean-Claude Van Damme was just another struggling immigrant in Los Angeles, chasing a dream while working thankless odd jobs to pay the rent. One of those jobs landed him at Woody's Wharf, a bar co-owned by none other than Chuck Norris, who was already cementing his status as a rising action star. In those humble beginnings, a powerful dynamic was born. Van Damme looked up to Norris with a deep, almost reverential admiration, seeing in him not just a success story, but a mentor and a blueprint for his own ambitions. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed like the foundation for a legendary Hollywood brotherhood was being laid, a partnership that could dominate the martial arts genre for a decade. But then, fame intervened. Once Van Damme exploded onto the scene with the raw, visceral success of Bloodsport and Kickboxer, the humble and hungry protege Chuck Norris once knew underwent a dramatic and disappointing transformation. The intense charisma and physical grace he displayed on screen gave way to pure chaos and ego behind the scenes. He rapidly became infamous throughout the industry for a pattern of unprofessionalism, showing up hours late to set, demanding last-minute script rewrites to amplify his own role, and engaging in heated, volatile clashes with directors and producers. The fame he had so desperately wanted didn't humble him, it inflated him. And the disciplined martial artist Norris once respected was now looking like a deeply unreliable liability. The true testament to this broken trust lies in a project that never was. In the early 1990s, there were serious, high-level talks about pairing the two stars in a martial arts epic, tentatively titled The Eagle Shadow, a film conceived to echo the iconic cultural showdown of Norris versus Bruce Lee in The Way of the Dragon. Fans salivated at the mere idea of a blockbuster confrontation between two of the era's biggest action icons. But according to insiders, the deal collapsed entirely under the weight of Van Damme's increasingly erratic behavior and a list of ever-changing contract demands that studio executives simply could not meet. Norris, characteristically, never publicly denounced the failed project, but his prolonged silence on the matter spoke volumes, confirming that the rumors were almost certainly true. The quiet condemnation finally broke into public view in 2001. At a martial arts expo, Norris was directly asked about Van Damme and delivered a single, devastatingly precise word that cut deeper than any roundhouse kick ever could: undisciplined. This wasn't just casual criticism, it was a final, moral verdict on Van Damme's entire character. Years later, Van Damme would publicly admit to his struggles with addiction and the corrosive effects of his own ego, offering a belated confession. But for Norris, the damage was irreversible. The code had been broken, and whatever bond may have existed between the barback and the bar owner, the protege and the mentor, was gone forever. Number 4. Alec Baldwin. When comedy turns into a cultural war. Now this entry might catch you off guard. Chuck Norris never shared a single frame of film with Alec Baldwin, never traded dialogue in a buddy cop movie, and yet their feud somehow became louder and more defining than any on-screen battle he ever fought. Why? Because this conflict transcended Hollywood. It wasn't about acting techniques or on-set behavior. It was a proxy war for the soul of America itself, and Norris was not about to retreat from that battlefield. For decades, Chuck Norris has worn his beliefs not just on his sleeve, but like a full suit of armor: unapologetic Christian faith, traditional family values, and a deep, unwavering loyalty to conservative politics. He wasn't a quiet supporter. He was a vocal warrior, campaigning for figures like Mike Huckabee and Mitt Romney, and later staunchly defending Donald Trump. He penned widely read columns warning that the Hollywood elite was actively drifting away from, and even mocking, the heartland's core values. To his millions of fans, he was no longer just an action hero. He was a general in the culture wars, a voice defending their version of tradition against a rising tide of liberal satire. Then, entering stage left was Alec Baldwin. Week after week on Saturday Night Live, Baldwin donned that now iconic orange wig and exaggerated sneer, transforming into a caricature of Donald Trump. To much of the country, it was peak comedy, but to Chuck Norris and his supporters, it wasn't just parody. It was a personal and calculated mockery. It wasn't merely a politician being teased. It was a ridicule of the millions of Americans who voted for him, who shared his values, and who saw Norris as their champion. The sketch comedy stage had become the front line of a new cultural civil war. The simmering tension finally boiled over in 2017. Norris released a blistering blog post, a manifesto aimed at Hollywood elites who he accused of relentlessly ridiculing faith, patriotism, and the very concept of American greatness. He never uttered the name Alec Baldwin, but the target was painted with blindingly obvious strokes. It was a sniper shot fired from the shadows of his blog, a classic Norris move, letting the principle, not the person, be the headline. What makes this clash so uniquely fascinating is that the two men have never confronted each other in a room. There were no screaming matches, no heated interviews, just the heavy, resonant silence of two icons standing on opposite sides of an unbridgeable ideological canyon, each representing a version of America the other cannot comprehend, and each absolutely refusing to budge an inch. Number 5. Bruce Lee. The rivalry that refused to die and the legacy that became a burden. Everyone remembers the iconic scene, seared into cinematic history, the final silent showdown in the Roman Colosseum in 1972's The Way of the Dragon. Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris, two masters locked in a dance of death. A fight sequence so brutally elegant and perfectly executed that fans still dissect it frame by frame half a century later. On screen, it was the pinnacle of choreographed respect, a tribute to their shared art. But the moment the cameras stopped rolling, the world refused to let the narrative end there. The public, hungry for a definitive victor, transformed a moment of artistic collaboration into a lifelong, inescapable competition. Chuck Norris has always been publicly consistent. He respected and admired Bruce Lee. They weren't just co-stars, they were training partners who pushed each other to new limits, and by all accounts, they shared laughs and a mutual professional respect. That legendary Colosseum fight was meticulously storyboarded by Lee himself to showcase the beauty and power of their respective styles. It was never meant to spark a bitter, real-world rivalry, but audiences and the media became obsessed, reducing Norris's entire identity to a single recurring question: who would really win? Imagine the profound frustration for Norris. For years, everywhere he went, that was the only question that mattered. Reporters didn't ask about his own 7-time world professional middleweight karate championships, nor the nuances of his own successful film career. It was always, exclusively, about Bruce. In interviews, a weary Chuck Norris would eventually admit with a resigned sigh, "For years, people always asked if Bruce could beat me." The constant, grinding comparison didn't just overshadow his achievements, it actively stung. This wasn't anger directed at Bruce Lee the man, but a deep-seated resentment toward a media machine and a fan culture that had turned a cherished friend and collaborator into his perpetual, ghostly opponent. The martial arts community itself poured gasoline on the fire, with purists fiercely arguing that Bruce Lee's revolutionary Jeet Kune Do philosophy made traditional styles like Norris's Tang Soo Do obsolete. In response, Norris's defenders would volley back, pointing to his undeniable competitive record and his monk-like discipline. Almost overnight, what began as a profound friendship started to look, from the outside, like a rivalry carved in stone. Tragically, even Bruce Lee's shocking and untimely death in 1973 did nothing to quiet the debate. If anything, it immortalized the conflict. To this very day, online forums and YouTube videos are battlegrounds where fans relentlessly argue about who would have triumphed in a no-holds-barred street fight. And no matter how frequently or how eloquently Norris has praised Bruce's unparalleled genius and innovation, the world overwhelmingly preferred the more dramatic myth. Two legendary warriors, forever frozen in time, circling each other in the shadow of the Colosseum, destined to fight for eternity. For Chuck Norris, the greatest fight of his life became one he could never win. The battle to be seen as more than just the answer to a question about Bruce Lee. Number 6. Michael Moore, the documentarian who provoked his ideological wrath. When Chuck Norris decided to draw a line in the sand and call out Hollywood for what he saw as a systemic attack on core American values, one filmmaker stood squarely in the crosshairs of his fury: the provocateur documentarian Michael Moore. Known for crafting controversial left-leaning documentaries like Bowling for Columbine 2002 and the incendiary Fahrenheit 9/11 2004, Moore built his entire career and brand on challenging the very foundations of conservative America, from U.S. foreign policy and corporate greed to the sacred right to bear arms. For millions of conservatives, his films weren't just biased documentaries, they were perceived as direct and deliberate assaults on their way of life. And for Chuck Norris, it was a personal provocation that demanded a response. Norris has always defended the Second Amendment with the same unwavering intensity and discipline he once brought to the dojo. He authored syndicated columns passionately praising responsible gun ownership and issuing stark warnings about the slippery slope of government restrictions. So when Moore's Bowling for Columbine deliberately portrayed American gun culture as inherently reckless, violent, and deadly, Norris saw it as a dangerous distortion of the truth. He didn't just disagree, he counterattacked with the precision of a verbal roundhouse kick. In one of his most pointed and widely quoted remarks, he declared, "When you take away guns, you take away freedom." For his audience, this wasn't just political rhetoric, it was a fundamental truth, a battle cry drawn from the same core philosophy that defined his entire life. What followed was a long-running, long-distance war of words, an ideological duel fought entirely through media channels. Moore continued to use his filmmaking platform to mock and criticize conservative ideals, while Norris strategically used his own massive platform, his blog, his columns, his interviews, as a bulwark to defend them. They never shared a stage, never debated face-to-face, but the absence of a physical confrontation only amplified the clarity of their conflict. Their clash played out in headlines, on cable news, and in op-eds, systematically framing them as the ultimate opposites in America's endless cultural civil war. Years later, the stalemate remains absolute. Moore still champions progressive causes with unabated zeal, and Norris still stands as a sentinel, warning of the erosion of tradition and faith. Their feud remains utterly unresolved, a powerful reminder that sometimes the fiercest and most lasting battles aren't fought with fists on a movie set, but with ideas in the unforgiving court of public opinion. And that's the definitive list of the 6 rivals Chuck Norris couldn't stand. Which feud shocked you the most? And do you think his unwavering stance was justified, or did he hold on to grudges for too long? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another one of our Untold Hollywood stories.